Good morning, everyone. Happy Halloween. It's Friday. It's the end of a week, or is the week just beginning? Because there's a massive match ahead this weekend on Sunday against Rangers at Hampden. We're here to chat through all of that and all the latest managerial speculation surrounding Celtic in what is a fairly transformative period for the club all in. Before we get started, then join Tony Haggerty, who's my co-host this morning. Just a word from our sponsors at Simply Furniture, who are located in Hillington, Glasgow. They're an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. They have over a decade of experience in furniture retail, meticulously sourcing only the finest pieces curated for quality, comfort and timeless design. Their dedicated team ensures your furniture is delivered with care, right to your doorstep. And if you want to see their range up close, you can visit their showroom in Hillington, Glasgow. And if you mention the Celtic Way, you get a special discount. All the links will be below in the description. Tony Haggerty, how are you feeling this morning? It's been quite the week at Celtic. There's been a lot happening, a lot going on, a lot of angst, a little bit of humour, a wee bit of football and joy along the way. And now Rangers has suddenly popped up on the horizon like a Halloween fright, just out of nowhere almost. This game's crept up on everyone, I think, Tony, just given everything that's going on this week.
Yes, without a doubt. Say happy Halloween to everybody. I can't do anything about my big ball face if that's spooking anybody at this time in the morning, long before the watershed. I'm very sorry about that. But yeah, and do you know what, John? We spoke off air just as we were about to come on, and I said, I think every Celtic supporter now has a spring in their step looking forward to this football match. And it's amazing what one result and positivity and humour can do. And I also said to you as well, Martin O'Neill has been a bit of a tonic here, hasn't he? He's come in and he's been a bit of mellow Martin and a bit of humour. But I say to you, he reminds me of the guy that if you've ever seen Monty Python's Life of Brian and the Roman centurions are searching for Brian and they chap the old guy's door and he answers it and he says, my eyes are knackered, my knees are weak and my nose is bent. And and everything, he points out every ailment. That's Martin O'Neill right now. I'm 73. I'm delegating it to him. Beneath that, John, lies a ferocious competitor who wants nothing more than to beat Rangers on Sunday. And see that for me. And he's also giving everybody his humour because it's cutting and it's scathing and it's biting and it's wonderful and it's funny. And I just think that's a perfect tonic for the players because everything up until Martin O'Neill took over was very staid, very solid, very serious. And I just think everybody feels better about themselves, John. It's no guarantee we'll win the football match. No guarantee we'll win the football match, but I think everybody feels our chances have been heightened with the arrival of, as Billy Connolly once said, a sainted man, or it should be.
Tony, maybe we should do a segment every Friday where you dive into cinema history and give us a Celtic analogy, because that was good. Jason Mudgard also saying, just the mention of Rangers and Tony's Dugs go mental. You've got them well trained, Tony, I see.
Oh, without a doubt. I think the other buzzword is Margaret Thatcher. They usually go a bit tonto when I mention stuff. It's just like you can look it up.
I bet a lot of viewers would love a glimpse into the Tony Haggerty household. Hazel Finn saying, don't you just feel better with Martin O'Neill back? The gloom has lifted a bit. And listen, it has. And I'm not trying to shy away from serious issues, everyone. We know that there's a lot going on about the club. What we're also trying to do with these videos sometimes is just segment it a wee bit. So if you want to, if you're looking for a discussion on Dermot Desmond and the fan protest and everything going on around the club, you can listen to the podcast me and Hamish had out last night. That's where to go for that. I think this morning we're going to be pretty focused on the football, a bit of managerial chat, and obviously the game against Rangers on Sunday, because that is the main event this weekend, regardless of everything else going on at Celtic. You never go into a game against Rangers without it being the main event, Tony. And that'll be the message to the players as well. Regardless of everything that's happened this week, they'll be so laser focused on playing a Rangers team who, again, they've found a bit of optimism as well themselves. You know, they've had a couple of decent results. Danny Rose coming in and he's made a bit of an impact. He's tinkering with the formation, he's tinkering with their team and trying to get the best out of them as well. It goes into this game with just a game full of unknowns, and you're hoping that Celtic can step up into that kind of vacuum of certainty.
Yeah, of course. And let's not underestimate the other night. Rangers got a massive fillip. That was a huge result for them. And I think Danny Rowe, it's about results for Rangers as well at the minute, isn't it? Performances will come later. You know, Jack Buckland saved a late penalty as well. So, you know, things are on the upturn for Rangers as well. So you've got to be really cognizant of that, John. I'm sure Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney, and Mark Fotheringham are. So, but I just think I think you said the word the other night when you tweeted. It was a perfect tonic for Celtic the other night.
Yeah.
We accepted it was Falkirk, but Falkirk are a tidy football team. But I just think there a lot of stress is placed on putting a smile on the faces of Celtic. The Celtic manager's got a smile on his face, or the interim management team. The supporters have got a smile on their face, and the players have got a smile on their face, John. So we are going in having prepared as much as we can, as much as I think they had one training session before Falkirk. They've had a few days. I think it's better that the game's on Sunday. I'm actually chuffed. That's more time to work on shape, to work on formation style, whatever you want to call it. But I think everybody just witnessed something. They got the ball forward with pace and purpose and intensity, John, and they scored some good goals. So I think that's what everybody's going for. But yeah, you are playing your city rivals. They are on an upward trajectory, I think, as well. So yeah, there's lots of unknowns, John. It's a match that throws up more questions than answers at this minute, because you can't say with any certainty what's going to happen.
And there'll be a bit of bravado going into this one from supporters, etc. But that's rivalry bravado, because Celtic's last 12 months against Rangers haven't been very good, Tony. Let's not shy away from that. Celtic beat them, obviously, last year in September 3-0. After that, Celtic were victorious in the Scottish League Cup final on penalties, though, and the Celtic performance raised a lot of question marks, even back then, about what the direction of this team was. That was last December. Since then, obviously, Rangers beat Celtic 3-0 at Ibrox. Then they won at Celtic Park as well, 3-2. There was a 1-1 draw at Ibrox at the end of last season, and of course the 0-0 draw at the start of this season, which just looked like two teams that had hit the end of their tether. Yeah. Even though Russell Martin had only been in the job a few weeks, the Rangers team looked like they were going nowhere. Brendan Rodgers' Celtics team kind of looked like it was going nowhere as well. And I wonder if both teams will just play with a lot more freedom now on Sunday off the back of that 0-0. Again, I just thought that it was the freedom in the Celtic team that really defined the performance on Wednesday. I've seen a lot of people using the phrase shackles off, etc. And really, you hope they take that freedom into this game on Sunday, regardless of the stakes and the getting into a final and the fact it's a semi-final. I think the players can go into this one without any kind of trepidation at all and just go at Rangers. That's really what I'm hoping for, Tony.
Both sides will claim that they have equal rights to win in this game, John, in terms of what's at stake and what it means. Look, I think Celtic haven't had a meaningful victory in Rangers in the last 4. You don't want that to stretch to 5. Rangers have had victories, but in the grand scheme of things, they haven't really counted for much. So I think both sides will be desperate to win it, John. Who does it mean more to? It is genuinely a toss of a coin, but I would say, from Celtic's point of view, you don't want that to become a rut where you can't beat your rivals and become not a mental block. But I think the freedom that they were given the other night, you just saw that the players were, I don't know, you get that phrase, the new manager bounce and all that. It was a different voice, or 3 different voices that were talking to them, John. Players respond differently to different voices, and I think you're right, and I think we can all accept it. I think Brendan Rodgers' tenure was coming to a natural end. We spoke about that on Monday, didn't we? And if it wasn't on Monday, it would have been further down the line. You were just kicking the can down the road. And had he lost to Rangers, had he been in situ and say he won against Falkirk but lost to Rangers, then we would be having that same conversation again. So it's Brendan Rodgers leaving the club or resigning came a lot quicker than we anticipated. So now Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney and Matt Fotheringham are in the interim period. But I just think that, for me, John, that's the way you want a Celtic team to play, the way they went about their business the other night. It was just reminiscent of a Celtic team that you thought, that's what a Celtic team's all about. Pace, purpose, end product, and players just responding to a different voice. And I think that's done them the world of good. And I'm hoping, like you, that they can continue in that vein at Hampden on Sunday.
Yeah, we're going to go through a potential team. We're going to bring in some of your comments as well, everyone. Thanks again to everyone joining us in the live chat. If you're a fan of what we do, if you've enjoyed our videos this week, please make sure to consider subscribing to the Celtic YouTube channel. It's totally free. All you need to do is click a button below. If everyone watching this right now subscribed right now, it would be a massive boost to what we do and how we go about our business and what we're able to do going forward. So we would really appreciate more subscribers, and then you get to stay in touch with all our future videos too. Tony, I've put together a predicted 11 here. Now it's not going to be popular with everyone in the live chat. I'm just gonna make that clear right now. Not everyone's going to agree with me, but that's fine. I don't even know if Tony's going to agree with me because Tony's barely seen this. So any flack for this team goes squarely at myself, everyone. This is the team that I'm kind of putting forward for Sunday. Now, the big change, maybe the notable change is that there's no Johnny Kenny in the team, and people will be screaming at me going, John, that's incredibly harsh. He just scored 2 brilliant poaching goals on Wednesday. Why you want to drop a youngster and destroy his confidence? I understand that. I just think from the way Martin O'Neill was speaking after the game, he still spoke of Johnny Kenny as someone who's learning his trade. Although he praised his finishes as well. And I think with Daisameda coming back and a game that could break down and become chaotic, I just maybe want Daisameda in that role. I would not be disappointed at all if Johnny Kenny is in that starting role. Martin O'Neill also went out of his way to praise James Forrest for his performance on Wednesday night as well, which made me think that he's going to stick with James Forrest on that right side. I don't think the right side functioned as well as the left on Wednesday night, Tony, but the left-hand side was incredible. And although Kieran Tierney is returning to fitness, I would have Sriracha and Tenekte on that left-hand side. What's your thoughts on this? And obviously, everyone in the live chat, give us your thoughts on this team as well. Let us know what your 11 wants. You want your 11 to be, and I'll try and bring in some of those comments. But Tony, just your thoughts on this for starters.
Sriracha's nailed on starter for me, John. Negrin behind, playing that central role, what he played the other night, without a doubt. I'm going to go against my own thoughts as well. Normally, I say yellow jersey, right? If you get the yellow jersey, you're playing. But I tend to agree with you. And I just think Daisameda brings that wealth of experience. And his work rate alone, Martin O'Neill's all about work rate and work ethic. And reading into his comments as well, what you picked up on about Johnny Kenny, I just think he maybe just doesn't trust him for a game of this magnitude. And that's fine. He is still learning his trade. Scored 2 wonderful goals the other night, but football's a harsh game, and this is the games where even interim managers are judged on, John. So Martin O'Neill's going to have to make that a really harsh decision, and I think it will fall on Johnny Kenny. I think you'll put Daisameda in there. The rest of the team speaks for itself because I think they earned the right to start after the way they went about their business the other night. It is as harsh as anything on Johnny Kenny, but listen, he'll get some minutes on Sunday, no doubt. But I just think Daisameda, you just want him there, don't you, for what he brings, his work ethic, and he also proved that he can score goals against Rangers at Hampden. That League Cup final goal for me is still a wonderful take and a wonderful touch and a wonderful strike. So yeah, I'm on board with that, John. As harsh as it is on Johnny Kenny, but that would be my team for Sunday as well. I have to say, and Sriracha, for me, just epitomised everything which was good about Celtic the other night. He was my man of the match, John, I have to say.
He was excellent. Jerry Smith saying the team Wednesday must be the team that starts Sunday, so he's not wanting any changes at all. Michael's saying, I would rather start Maeda over Forrest, as in the games I feel he struggles with fitness aspect, getting back defending. He can also be very good coming off the bench later, which I think is a fair point. I think I've seen some people suggest that maybe it should be Johnny Kenny as the centre forward and Daisameda on the right. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Daisameda on the right, but I do understand that. Henrik Larsson putting forward, I wonder if Sinisalo might get the cup games, and that is true. Sinisalo has played the League Cup games, and everyone has been clamouring for Sinisalo to. I mean, again, that might be harsh to take the jersey off him just because you're in the semi-final against Rangers. The only small problem with that is Casper Michael was very good on Wednesday and made a couple of good saves and made a crucial save at 1-0 again, which was highlighted by Martin O'Neill. So I'm just wondering what the thinking will be there. I wouldn't be massively surprised to see Sinisalo start this game, Tony. Does the change of manager automatically rule out this kind of cup keeper thing, or would you like to see Sinisalo, continue in this League Cup campaign?
No, but I think the fact that he highlighted Casper Schmeichel's save, and it was a brilliant save, by the way, really good save at a crucial time. So I just think he might just keep that one change minder for Kenny, I think, will be enough for him, and let the rest do their thing. I don't think he'll tinker with it too much. And again, that's harsh and Sinizalo. But and again, I wouldn't be too perturbed if he brought Sinizalo in either, because I think they're both two cracking goalkeepers. So yeah, but like you, I don't think he'll want to tinker too much with that, because he'll probably be working on the fact that Kasper Schmeichel played the other night, and there's kind of some understanding there, having played a full 90 minutes with the same, more or less the same team. So they might want to work in that, so that's just that kind of continuity for me. Maybe wins over Sinizalo coming back in, John.
And this midfield, as we know, I mean, the midfield did have a different shape to it on Wednesday night, with Benjamin Nygren definitely playing more, further forward, closer to Johnny Kenny. So I would expect a similar kind of setup to that. As you see here, these are the kind of positions against Falkirk. There you see Benjamin Nygren very advanced against in the last league match at home against Motherwell. The midfield was much flatter, that midfield three. So I would expect it to kind of function like that again against Rangers, potentially, although they might do something different, unique to, because Rangers have a different setup. I think they're playing with a back three at the moment. They might try something different there. But is that your midfield three as well, Tony? McGregor, Engels, and Nygren. Again, I thought McGregor looked like another one who just had more freedom about him and looked like a different type of character in that Celtic team. Less possession being filtered through him, and in that sense, that allowed him to get further forward and be more efficient with his possession.
Yeah. See, if Benjamin Nygren had the scoring prowess of Frank Lampard or something, he wouldn't be at Celtic, because he does ghost into some wonderful positions, John. He is working on his finishing, no doubt, and his technique on that, but he can get there, and I'm just hoping that it all starts to come together. But you're starting to see it, because his goal the other night was anticipation again. The goalkeeper spilled it. He's first to react. His goal against Motherwell, they made a mistake. He was first to react. He dispatches it. So it's there. In bits, John, it's there in the sum of the parts. I want it to be the whole, because I think Benjamin Nygren can at times, look like a player, a real player. But the other night against Sturm Graz, he had 5 headers before he eventually put one away, didn't he?
Tony, I'm incredibly relaxed about the Nygren situation. I think the output that he's had since he's come into the club for a pretty low fee has been a good return so far. I understand, I get the frustrations with him, but I think there's been a lot of kind of, I wouldn't go as far to call it hysteria, because that's too much, but there's been a lot of elevated talk about what Nygren's doing in this team, and I understand it wasn't really working. The midfield wasn't working with Brendan Rodgers there. But Nygren's output has been fairly impressive for coming into the team and being a midfield player. And it's the very start of his Celtic career, and I still think he's going to grow into becoming a Celtic player. Some people just don't fancy him, Tony, and I get that. I don't think I'm going to change anyone's mind on that. Sometimes you just don't fancy a player. But I think he's been, pretty effective at being that midfield player who can break into that box and disrupt things a bit.
Oh no, I fancy him big time, John.
Not yourself, Tony. I wasn't talking about yourself.
No.
There's definitely a discussion around Nygren, isn't there?
I genuinely think that's his position, behind a front man or a front two, where he can go into the box undetected. His goal at Pittodge against Aberdeen was a similar one, wasn't it? Cut back, and he was there to dispatch it. So I like what he brings. I'm just my only gripe is that he does get a lot of chances, and the conversion ratio could be higher, should be higher, but I'm not knocking what he does, and I'm certainly thinking that he's a grower. He will grow into this team, and for the outlay, as you say, that's fantastic what he's brought so far. I'm just thinking, like Sunday, we can't have a 1 in 5 scoring ratio if you create similar chances. You get the enormity of games like this and taking your chances is crucial. So that's all, and I'm sure the management trio will stress that to him. You might get away with that in games against Sturm Graz and lesser opposition. If it's Rangers and you're getting 1 or 2 chances and they fall to him, he has to be a bit more clinical. That's all. But what he's outputting the product so far is I can't argue with that, John. I've got to be honest.
One of the difficulties I think Celtic midfielders have at the moment is everyone wants them to be Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly for me was almost a complete Celtic midfielder, and he was so devastating in the final third in that last season. But he also had a physicality. He was hard to play past, I think, for opposition teams as well. Whereas Nygren at times, what we've seen in this early part of the season is that it's been quite easy to play past Nygren when the opposition has the ball, and that's been a massive frustration, I think, for supporters. But he's not Matt O'Reilly. He's a different player. He's a different type of player. And what you need to do in those situations, if it's not a complete player, what you do, Tony, is you play to their strengths, don't you? And I think Nygren's strengths is never going to be that player who is tasked with defending the ball at Celtic. I just don't think that's what his role should be. And you've got to put him in that more attacking position, just like you've said. Again, Martin O'Neill talks about simplicity. Football's not that complicated. You play to players' strengths, you give them the best chance of success, you see what they can do, and hope in the day that things fall your way. And if you've got better players in the opposition and they're playing in their more defined roles that they're more comfortable with, then the chances are that you are going to win a game, unless you're severely exploited, in fringe cases.
John, I can picture Martin O'Neill watching this and screaming at your graphic. Shouting,
of course he is, Tony. I've got no doubt about that. This graphic here again. Martin O'Neill thinks, Martin O'Neill thinks this is a load of nonsense, and I think that's right. But you know what? It does demonstrate that Celtic played more simply against Falkirk than they did against Motherwell, where they were tied up in these central positions in midfield and just filtering everything through Liam Scales and McGregor. You can see in that the left hand side's on fire. Liam Scales is just banging it out to that left hand side. Callum McGregor's getting forward. Benjamin Egan's getting forward to support, and Johnny Kenny's just loitering there. He's not. I think he did have moments of link up in that match, but he's loitering around the box, ready to put the ball in the back of the net, and that's what you want from your centre forward.
You can just imagine Martin saying,
"Yeah, I know.
Somebody explain this to me." The old Groucho Marx joke: a 4-year-old child could understand that. We'll go and get a 4-year-old child because I can't make head nor tail of it. You know what I mean? So one of the ones, but listen again. As I say, he's no daft. You put something like that in front of him, he would understand that completely.
Of course he would.
He likes to do that. He knows what he's talking about. But and I think a lot of what happened the other night was the fact that the message was simple, John. Football is a simple game. Do what you're good at. And I think he stressed to those players, play to your strengths, because Nygren most certainly did. And also as well, I've not a lot's been made of it, but Luke McCowan's pass for the last goal was absolutely superb, John. It was, and that's what...
Engels had tried a few of them as well, Tony. Engels would. It was clear the message was try that bomb-in ball forward that splits open defenders.
Correct. The defence splitter, because those are the ones that when you rip a defence asunder, you're going in and going. Every chance you'll score. And that's what I liked from McCowan when he came on and he had that impact. The game didn't pass him by. It wasn't a case of a Celtic were 3-0 up and, cruising. They wanted to make an impact and they were clearly told, when you go on, try that. Look at what he's doing, try it. It might come off. And it got I noticed that. I mean, lots of Celtic supporters noticed it, but it is that to get that bang on, because the Falkirk defenders misjudged it, and he even tries to do Tenecti on the way through, tries to catch him and, take him out, and Tenecti get presence of mind to ride the challenge and then stick it away. But it's the pass that makes everything, it makes it all happen. And that's Celtic, isn't it? That's the team that you watch. That was a Matt O'Reilly-esque pass for me, John.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen Matt O'Reilly pick up the ball and do that kind of thing. So it's all those idiosyncrasies, patterns of behaviour that you thought returned to Celtic. Dare you say it, the world-class basics. But they did the basics very well the other night. They really did. And that's all you could have hoped for, John, going into Falkirk. And again, it's all you're hoping for against Rangers on Sunday. It's no guarantee of winning a football match because we know what these contests are like. But I think, I don't know about you, but I'm happier going into this match on Sunday than I would have been had it been Brendan Rodgers' side. Everybody knows how I felt about Brendan Rodgers, but I agree that the end of the tenure was nigh, and we've got a wee spring in our step. We're getting with a lot more optimism than we would have been.
Yeah, And in the background, the managerial search goes on for a permanent job. Before we get on to that, I'm just going to make a point, and I don't want this comparison to wind anyone up a bit, because I know how some people feel about Neil Lennon as a manager. But you remember when Brendan Rodgers left for Leicester, Neil Lennon came in, and that felt like a breath of fresh air at the time too, where Neil Lennon just said, let's just simplify everything here and get Celtic playing at a more loose type of football, almost a more direct style of football, and it brightened everything up in the tail end of that season. Neil Lennon coming in after Rodgers ultimately resulted in Neil Lennon getting the job, which I think was a tactical error from the Celtic board. But the point I'm making is that simplicity, I think, can really work in the short term. What you have question marks is how viable it is over the long term, but I don't think we need to worry about that at the moment, because I think Martin O'Neill's ever going to be a long term choice for Celtic. So I just think maybe actually Martin O'Neill coming in here as a figurehead in this moment was a pretty good call from people at Celtic who we have taken their fair share of criticism, very earned criticism, I have to say, and I'm not absolving them for the way they went about their business, because as I said, I don't think they needed to do that to Brendan Rodgers at the end, but I think they've picked a decent interim choice here to get Celtic through this period, Tony, and I think you're right, that's why people are feeling a bit good at the moment. And I say that in full knowledge that Sunday could be a completely disaster, Tony. It's a 50-50 game for me.
Yeah, but I think Dermot Desmond's picked a figure that unifies everybody. Nobody's got a bad word to say about Martin O'Neill. And as long as Martin O'Neill stressed himself as interim, and he's doing it for the good of Celtic. So that's fine. And I mentioned to Ryan the other day that I will give every ounce of energy to make things better for as long as I'm here. That was just shades of I will do everything within my power to bring this club success. It was just a variation on a similar theme, and I was delighted to hear that. And you know, I think he's just made us all smile again, John.
Yeah.
After what the fare that's been served up this season under Rodgers, and I spoke to you off air, and one of my friends was chanting, "We don't go back again." You know, that kind of, in terms of the football, we're not going back again. He was singing, and he made me laugh. And it's that depth of feeling that the Celtic supporters had, that you just weren't enjoying what they were watching, John, at the end of Brendan Rodgers' reign. And I think everybody could see that. So I think that Falkirk was a taster. Sunday's a different ballgame altogether. But if it's anything like the other night, then, John, we'll be there or thereabouts. Because, as I say, Martin O'Neill's shrewd. He's as shrewd as they come, and he will have his well-drilled, well-disciplined, well-organised, and will be certainly a more competitive force in this match than we might well have been under Brendan Rodgers heading into it. I think most people were dreading the thought of heading into under Brendan Rodgers. That's not the case anymore.
Brown Warrior going for a curveball selection. He's going full old school, full Martin O'Neill old school, 3-5-2, Trusty Scales, Tierney, Ralston, Negron, Engels, McGregor, Sriracha with Maeda and Kenny to match them up, get it forward. That would be some sight to see. I would be... And this kind of leads into my other point, Tony, is that the unknowns in football are what football is all about. And I think for a lot of what has happened at Celtic over the last couple of years, whether winning or losing, it just all became a bit predictable in a sense. And I think unknowns are healthy in football. It's healthy for a football fan to go into a game and not know whether their team is going to lose or be hammered. And you just have to take that. That's what football is. And I enjoy those unknowns, Tony. I have to be honest. Like I enjoy going into the Hearts game, although it ended disastrously, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, and I'm enjoying going into this game on Sunday, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, and then you take your licks or you celebrate joy at the end of it, and that's a healthy thing as a football supporter.
Of course it is. The one gripe amongst a lot of Celtic supporters in the past few years of unprecedented success is there's been no challenge. Can't have it both ways. When you've got a challenge, you can't start moaning, and I relish the challenge, John. I'm like you. I'm like, fine. And good on Hearts. Hearts are there on merit. Fully deserved to win last weekend. But, there is a lot of football to be played and a lot of time to go. So handle the pressure at the top. We've gained 2 points that we lost. 2 of the 3 that we lost to them in midweek. So, it's down to 6. But you just chip away at that, John. But I tell you what it does do. It focuses the mind. And then you look behind you and Rangers are only, 5 behind you. So you say, right, there's a challenge coming now from them. They're starting to, so that sharpens the brain, John, for me. And I'm all for that. And those unknowns, as you say, that unpredictability, it's not a situation that Celtic have been used to for a while, but might have to get used to it this year. Great. Bring it on. It's what football's all about.
Also, the other unknown at the moment is who the next Celtic manager is going to be. The kind of main front runners, Kieran McKenna. There's been chat about Robbie Keane and Craig Bellamy and Ange Postecoglou. I think the Bellamy and Postecoglou stuff has quietened over the last couple of days. Postecoglou looks like he's going to take a break from football almost, and Craig Bellamy and the Welsh FA reports yesterday that they're moving forward very much focused on their World Cup qualifying campaign, etc. So I'm not really expecting too much from them. The main thing at the moment is the Kieran McKenna thing's not going away, and it's not going away for a reason, because everyone knows that Celtic are long-term admirers of him, and that Kieran McKenna has some sort of affinity with Celtic. He was asked about this. Kieran McKenna did a press conference yesterday ahead of Ipswich versus QPR. He was asked about the Celtic links. He said, "It's not something I've given any thought to or where any part of my concentration is this week. To be honest, my focus is just on Ipswich. We grew up with affinities to certain clubs, but there's no time to think or look at it. I've not had any of those conversations or anything of the like. Again, my focus has been purely here. I work as if I'm always going to be Ipswich manager. I know in reality I won't be. There will be some stage in the future that I won't be for whatever reason, but it never detracts me from every day trying to do the right things for the long-term future of the club, and that's where my focus is." Tony's not going to say anything else here, is he? That's what managers say in this situation. No real insight on kind of what he's thinking or feeling in this moment. I think it all comes down to, ultimately, it comes down to compensation fees, and it comes down to wages. Kieran McKenna is a very well-paid manager. He's more well-paid at Ipswich than Brendan Rodgers was at Celtic. I don't think buying him out of his contract's an issue, but we know that Celtic are self-sustainable. So for as much as Dermot Desmond, has effective control, he doesn't underpin Celtic with millions of his own money. So Celtic are self-sustaining, and then it comes down to, what is Kieran McKenna willing to be paid by Celtic, and what are Celtic willing to pay him? And I think that's maybe what it will come down to, regardless of affinity. So I think that one's to play out. I'm still waiting for the left field choice manager option, Tony. Always in these managerial cycles, something comes from left field that you're not expecting, and I'm still waiting for that shoe to drop and see what transpires from that.
Where's Stuart Baxter when you need him? Going back to Kieran McKenna, it wasn't a no, was it?
No, it wasn't a no. No, it certainly wasn't. No.
and ... I'm thinking that was a come and get me if you want, Celtic. I talk about reading between lines, but that's what that smacked off to me. You have to say, I've got a job here and I'm fully focused on that, right? Mm-hmm. But there's ways of saying that, and that sentence, we all have clubs that we have an affiliation to. Mm-hmm. He's just admitting, right, okay, hands up, I'm an out-and-out jungle chim. If Celtic were to come calling, we'd have to have a conversation. I'd have to think about it. And I think what I've been saying about this, John, is if Celtic identify preferred candidates and then they have an outstanding candidate, then they have to go and get them. They can't make a rickets of this, John. But I think every managerial candidate will want to know what they're working with after the missive on Monday night. And I think due diligence cuts both ways, doesn't it? And, so they would need to know what the situation is. But we don't need any long, protracted affairs. If Celtic identify one outstanding candidate, then please go and get them. Don't turn it into a sideshow and a circus and make a rickets of it by not offering them what they want, or within reason, of course, for a club of Celtic's financial parameters. And if he does have the multi-million-pound buyout clause that everybody's saying, but that's who Celtic want, then you know that. Don't pay it. Don't let it become an obstacle or anything like that. Do your due diligence on every candidate, work out who is your preferred and outstanding candidate, and then go and get them. If it's Nick Hayne, the Bruges manager, go and get him. If it's Kjetil Knutsen, go and get him, John. or if it's somebody left field, as you say, then go and get them. But this has to be. I'm more concerned about Celtic's business practices, John, the way they handle this situation now, because they botched up the summer transfer window, something terrible. And
I totally agree with Tony. Yeah.
All eyes will be on how they conduct this managerial search, with the Monday missive at the forefront of your minds, and any managerial candidate worth their salt saying, okay, let's talk, but I want to know certain things.
And again, I want to emphasise this. I said this to Hamish. This is all going to come down to who can convince Dermot Desmond in a room that he has the stuff to be Celtic manager. And as we know, Ange Postecoglou on paper didn't look like a Celtic manager, but Ange Postecoglou, imagine Celtic supporters had a half-hour conversation with Ange, you would immediately know that he was a stonewall Celtic manager ready to take on the challenge, and it'll come down to who can convince Dermot Desmond in that room. That's how it happens, everyone. There's a room where it happens, not to go all Hamilton, but there's a room where it happens, and essentially, we're not in it, Tony. We're not in that room, and we'll never be in that room.
No, sadly not. And that's again going back to the wielding of influence and power. There should be more people involved in that process, in that room. You might get people sort of having their say, but ultimately Dermot Desmond will sit with candidate X or candidate Y and say, I remember Martin O'Neill said he sat with the board of directors, didn't he? Dermot Desmond in particular, and he knew he wasn't the first choice because they'd gone to Spain to chase Goose Hiddink, didn't they? Which turned out to be, as all the tabloid headlines were, the wild goose chase, all that kind of stuff, guffaw. And but Celtic made a big public show of trying to get Goose Hiddink, and he decided that he didn't want to be the Celtic manager, and then Martin O'Neill came in on the back of that. So I would rather avoid scenarios like that, John.
Yeah, no, I understand. Stephen Ray sending in some left field choices. Gareth Southgate, Edin Terzic, the former Borussia Dortmund manager, of course, John Dale Thomas and Ten Hag. There's been over the last 20 years, Tony, whenever a managerial choice has come up, there's always some supporters who want Celtic to go for the continental option. Is that ever going to happen at Celtic? Is it always going to be someone who is a bigger name in England, or that's Dermot Desmond's so focused, I think, on kind of Scottish, English, Irish football. Is the continental option likely? Obviously, Celtic went for Ronnie Dyler once upon a time, but that seemed like almost that was unique. Are Celtic going to go for someone like Edin Terzic, for example, from a Dortmund manager? I can't see it personally, but we could get a left field choice here over the next week or so.
I can't see Edin Terzic personally. He did very well with Dortmund, taking them to the Champions League final. But I don't know. You just kind of feel at times Dermot Desmond retreats into what he knows. And I'm not sure Dermot Desmond's knowledge of continental football managers is top notch. I could be wrong in that, but I just feel sometimes he retreats into what he knows. After the Ronnie Dyler semi-final, he went out and recruited Brendan Rodgers because there was a relationship there with him, wasn't there? And I don't know about his relationship with Kieran McKenna, but there's that Irish connection, isn't there? And somebody will know somebody who knows somebody type thing, So, and I'm not saying that's lazy. I think lots of people retreat into what they know. So I'm not sure Dermot Desmond's knowledge of Edin Terzic, Kjetil Knutsen, Nick Hayne would be like you or I. And again, that's why more people need to be in the room to say, oh, by the way, this and this and this and this, that kind of thing, to maybe educate him on what they've been up to, because he's more happy on the golf course, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's all over the golf. So I think at certain times maybe Dermot Desmond has to be, steered into, listen, these are a list of candidates. But again, as you've said, it will come down to what he says goes. The man with the 34.7% share in Celtic making 100% of the big decisions. There's a disparity there, isn't there? Let's not kid ourselves.
Just on, I'm not sure I fancy Ten Hag, but if you talk about clubs beefing against managers this summer, then Ten Hag had a much worse situation than Brendan Rodgers. The stuff that came out about him after his Leverkusen spell from inside Leverkusen was quite shocking to say the least. So I'm not sure
Yeah,
I quite fancy that situation. I think it'll be someone closer to home. I think just my
yeah,
gut feeling, but you never know. Ange came out of left field, didn't he? And it was just that managerial search was so interesting because Celtic were so all in on Eddie Howe, who was this big name in England, a very Dermot Desmond choice. It all falls apart, and then within 48 hours, Ange Postecoglou feels like he's coming to Glasgow. So there'll be all sorts of stuff going on behind the scenes again here. And as I say, because this Celtic keep their cards so close to the chest, and effectively this is a decision from one man, it never really gets out there what the true story is until well after the fact, Tony.
yeah, correct, exactly. And I think the I'll try it again, Eddie Howe appointment, which was almost nailed on. I think everybody was on board with that, John. And then, as you say, within 48 hours of that falling through, Ange Postecoglou had come. And hindsight's a great thing. That two and a bit year spell with Ange Postecoglou was a wonderful magic carpet ride, wasn't it? Let's not kid ourselves. I think everybody loved it. They loved the football. But I don't know anybody who, when the Eddie Howe thing broke down and Ange Postecoglou was initially the next preferred candidate, that said, oh, wow, they loved it. And anybody that says that's telling lies. We learned to love him because we all did our due diligence and our homework after that. But I think there was real disappointment when the Eddie Howe thing broke down. I think Dermot Desmond would have been disappointed in that as well. And you could also say that Celtic got a bit lucky because Ange Postecoglou was part of the City group when he was available at the time, wasn't he? But you wouldn't swap it. You just wouldn't swap it now. And would Eddie Howe have did a similar job? It's all speculation and conjecture, isn't it? We will never know. But so yeah, I just hope we don't get into another Eddie Howe type situation with the manager. I hope we identify one person. If it's Kieran McKenna, I'm fine with that as long as they go and get him. Then, John, if it's any other candidate, I'm fine as long as they go and get him. But it's like everything else. There's a lot of speculation just now. There's a lot of and nobody's been offered it. So nobody's had the chance to say no. I guess people have spoken to representatives of Ange and maybe got his feelings about it, and he said he's want to take a sabbatical. I can understand Craig Bellamy concentrating on the World Cup because that's a big thing for Wales. So that's fine. At least you have a rationale and a reasoning behind why these guys wouldn't want the job if they were approached, so you can save yourself some time and not bother approaching them.
Yep, the Tony's dogs are going off again. Dermot Desmond must be at the door, Tony. That's his next. No, in all seriousness, we're heading off anyway, everyone. We'll be back on Sunday. Tony, you're going to Hampden, of course. Ryan's going to Hampden. You'll both be at Hampden covering the match. It's going to be a big game, an eventful day. Win or lose, really. No draw, of course. It'll come to a conclusion. And we'll see how things look after that. I actually think Sunday's wrapped up in a lot of what we're talking about with regard to, because what if there is no outstanding candidate and Matt O'Neill beats Rangers on Sunday? What happens then? What happens then is in the back of my head. So I think Sunday's result might have a bigger say on all that than we all think. Again, that is just my gut feeling. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I know we've been a bit more jovial this morning. I think that's due as well. We've been complaining a lot on the Celtic way over the last few weeks and months, Tony. It's good to just have a bit of patter and be hopeful about Celtic again.
Of course, that's the big thing. I said earlier, I think the smile's back. The smile's returned, hasn't it? That smile might be temporarily knocked off your face come Sunday. But listen, there's a spring in the step, and that the second last comment there, John, as you're looking at the screen, the return of the Messiah, Martin. Yeah, Celtic still wait for, in the words of Echo and the Bunnymen, bring on the new managerial Messiah wherever he may roam. At this minute, we've got a temporary one, and he'll do for me, John.
Yeah, he does for us just now, and again, that might be different on Monday, everyone. So let's take a deep breath and see what the weekend brings. We've got lots of coverage coming up on the website. We've got something going up shortly about what all of this has meant, all the coaching changes has meant for the youth teams at Celtic, from Josh McCafferty. But as I say, Manton Neil's doing a press conference later. There'll be lots coming out of that, and a player press conference as well. So lots of coverage over the weekend. If you do want to have a more in-depth look at the changes on Wednesday and how it differed from Brendan Rodgers, we've got an analysis piece up on the website right now, looking at all the tactical stuff and all the numbers. Another interesting part of Wednesday's match is that Celtic played with a much higher defensive line, Tony. I don't know if you're aware of that. They played with a much higher defensive line against Falkirk than they have so far this season, because they look to squeeze Falkirk into their own half, and I think that's very welcome as well, especially at home against a team. Whether that works against Rangers or Midtjylland or a team of higher quality, again, that is the unknown, isn't it? But it's interesting. So if you want to have a look at that, go to celticway.co.uk. We really appreciate all your subscriptions to the YouTube channel, which are free, but I would also consider a subscription to the website for all this exclusive stuff, interviews and analysis and all that. It's only £1 for 6 months. You get the press conferences as soon as they're out. You get press conferences away from home. You get press conferences even when Celtic don't upload the video because they've been beaten 3-0. That sometimes happens. But with us, we publish everything, Tony, and we appreciate our audience. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate all the support this week. It's been a really busy week, and we go into the weekend, hopeful. Hopeful, Tony. That's the word of the day for me. Hopeful. Optimistic and hopeful. I'm not even sure if it's optimistic, Tony. I'm hopeful, not optimistic. Is that possible? But yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us in the live chat. Leave a comment below to leave your thoughts on the Rangers game as well. And as I say, we'll be live from Hampden on Sunday for the big event. So join us then next time on the Celtic Way.